Ayubowan, greetings everyone. We welcome you to our fifth destination webinar. Here we are September 3rd, 2021. I am Trivida Dharmaratna and I shall take you through the fifth of the series of webinars, which goes on to the title, The Big Five Falling Under a Destination for the New Millennium, Sri Lanka Discover It. As always, with our webinars, everything you see in here, including the Q&A, which I'll come to in a moment, at the end will be recorded and you'll be sent a link to that recording as a replay you can watch at your own leisure. If you have to depart at any point over the course of the next 45 minutes, or indeed if you want to pass it on to anybody that was unable to attend today. Just a quick reminder that we want this session to be as interactive and engaging as possible. As I mentioned before, we do have a few minutes at the end set aside for anybody that has questions from our audience. If you have any questions, please send them over to us by hitting the Q&A button, which is in the bottom of your dashboard here today. We appreciate it if you could do so rather than using the chat functionality, if you please. Meanwhile, this webinar will inspire potential visitors from all over the world with a montage of Lankan landscapes and people. After 10 months of closure, Sri Lanka reopened its airports for international travelers from 21st January 2021. However, the government has imposed strict health guidelines to be followed. We have a small video to encourage you to visit our island paradise once more.
Our history isn't in the past. Our heritage isn't our better times. Our culture isn't done being defined. It's in the air. It's in the earth. It's in the waters. As it has been for thousands of years, as it still is this morning. Sri Lanka isn't a place, it's a marvel, a brave new world that wasn't made by the rules. She's a rebel of nature. She's a blessing of imagination, of untold innovation and resilience. Let's tell the story of Sri Lanka with the same courage this island was born of. It's in how we love, how we believe, how we protect, how we share, how we feast, and how we heal. As we dismiss strangers by making them friends. Because that stuff of stars that is beneath our feet, the brilliance that makes the monsoon waltz around lush hills and save itself to soothe scorched plains. The wonder that makes the salty seas nurture jungles of pure paradise. And the wild beauty that stays fierce and vibrant, even as time tries to quieten it, is in us. And now, it's time to show the world Sri Lanka as it has always been, but never been realized before.
We hope you enjoyed the video. Moving on, Sri Lanka Tailor-Made is a boutique DMC dealing with bespoke travel, focusing on unique and authentic off-the-beaten-track programs to Sri Lanka that follow a low-impact, high-emotion approach that is gentle on the environment but also rich in experience. We are a pioneer member of Traveler-Made and the first Traveler-Made on-site for Sri Lanka. Jetwing Eco Holidays created exclusively for the specialist eco traveler. We are an expert naturalist and customized tour operator with a team of qualified wildlife enthusiasts in the field. It is said the best way to experience a country is to travel with a local family, and at Sri Lanka Tailor-Made and Jetwing Eco Holidays, this certainly holds true. We are a 100% family-owned Sri Lankan company and we know Sri Lanka best. Sri Lanka is shining brighter than ever, and the world is taking notice, as evident in popular travel magazines in the world. We have successfully completed the webinar series, started off with the Northern highlights, today with the Big Five. Looking at the flight options from UK to Sri Lanka, as you can see, Qatar Airways via Doha, Emirates via Dubai, Sri Lankan direct flight, Etihad Airways via Abu Dhabi, Turkish Airlines via Istanbul, Kuwait Airways via Kuwait, Oman Air via Muscat, and British Airways. When it comes to the visa procedures, it will only cost you 35 US dollars per person, and it is also a requirement to obtain your visa prior to your arrival. As you can see, as per the new guidelines, there are no minimum night stays. Use of public transportation is disallowed. All tourists should undergo a PCR test on arrival at the first hotel before check-in. Vaccinated tourists should stay at a level 1 hotel on their first night, where an on-arrival PCR test will be carried out, and if the test is negative, they can travel freely. Unvaccinated tourists should be booked at a level 1 hotel for a minimum of 14 nights, where the first night an on-arrival PCR test will be carried out. Thereafter, they can travel within the bio bubble until the second PCR test is carried out on the 14th day and comes out negative. A repeat PCR test to be conducted in 10 days after the arrival of unvaccinated children who will be traveling with the vaccinated parents, and a repeat PCR test to be conducted on day 14 for all unvaccinated tourists. Any tourist with a history of COVID-19 can basically follow the same process as for the vaccinated travelers. The following would be the travel checklist when traveling into Sri Lanka. A negative PCR report issued by an accredited laboratory within the 72 hours prior to boarding flight to Sri Lanka. A signed health and safety declaration form shared with the Sri Lankan travel agent. A valid travel insurance with health and hospitalization coverage for the entire travel in Sri Lanka. A valid return air ticket. Travel itinerary and details of confirmed reservations made at Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority registered and safe and secure certified accommodation establishments with a first night stay in a facility in and around Colombo, Negombo, or Hambantota, depending on the arrival airport. A copy of the latest negative PCR report, health records, medical insurance relating to any illness within the past 3 months before traveling dates. We commend you carrying all these documents throughout your traveling in Sri Lanka. Travelers visiting Sri Lanka will be allowed to visit 14 tourist sites after undergoing the health and safety protocols. As you can see in this slide, Sigiriya Rock Fortress, ancient city of Anuradhapura, ancient city of Polonnaruwa, and Singaraja Forest are some of the UNESCO World Heritage Sites that you all could visit. Moving on, never to forget the wildlife of Sri Lanka, Yara National Park, Min Area National Park, Howdulla National Park, and Vilpattu National Park. And also other breathtaking sites of Sri Lanka, such as Peradeniya Botanical Gardens, Pinnavala Elephant Orphanage, the Open Zoo, Mirissa Whale Watching, and Elephant Transit Home. As you can see in this slide, these will be the key information for you to know before traveling into Sri Lanka. Why Sri Lanka? This is the Isles of Tropical Paradise. Our island, with its rich cosmopolitan flavor, offers an exciting array of cultural experiences and leisure pursuits. Here you will find an enticing mix of cultural activities, festivals, and eco-adventure. This is so Sri Lanka, dynamic, exhilarating, and unique. We look forward to welcoming you soon. What Sri Lanka has to offer? You already know what Sri Lanka has to offer with our past webinars. I recommend all of you to sit back, relax, and find out what our island paradise has to offer in terms of wildlife. Over to you, Shanila. Thank you.
Thank you, Trivida. Hello, everyone, and I hope you're doing well and safe. So let's start. Like many islands, Sri Lanka boasts a high number of endemic species, animals, and plants found nowhere else on Earth. The country is also regarded as one of the world's top 5 hotspots for biodiversity. Sri Lanka is one of the best wildlife watching destinations in the world and also claims to be one of the world's best nature destinations. A broad range of factors influence this judgment. Some of the key factors are the island's biodiversity, the availability of field guide type literature, the presence of specialist guides and specialist tour operators, a mature tourism industry with a broad range of accommodation and other facilities for tourists, and a good network for roads and reserves. There are 26 national parks declared in Sri Lanka and 2 World Heritage Natural Properties in Sri Lanka managed by the Forest Department and used for research, education, and recreation. 456 species of birds can be found in Sri Lanka. These include 33 endemics. 240 are breeding residents and 216 migrants. 94 species of mammals can be found in Sri Lanka, in which 21 species are endemics. When it comes to butterflies, there are 247 species found and 26 are endemics. 210 species of reptiles, whereas 76 of them are endemics in Sri Lanka. Taking a look at the wildlife calendar, here we can notice that loris, reptiles, and leopards can be seen all year round, whereas the down south whale watching season as well as the birding season is from November to end April. The mystical elephant gathering can be witnessed every year during June to end September. The months of May and June are ideal for sloth bears and butterflies. So according to what species you prefer to see or what month you plan to travel, there will be some sort of wildlife highlight to be included in your itinerary. Moving on, let's talk about Sri Lanka's Big Five. So Sri Lanka's Big Five includes the Sri Lankan leopard, sloth bear, Sri Lankan elephant, blue whale, and sperm whale. The Asian elephant is the #1 animal that people on holiday in Sri Lanka hope to spot. While there are a number of elephant orphanages that allow you to get up close and personal with the animals by riding and feeding them, we don't recommend this. Seeing elephants in the wild is a much better experience, which you can do without worrying whether you are being mistreated or not. The Sri Lankan leopard perhaps is the most elusive cat in the world. The leopard reigns supreme on Sri Lanka with no lions or tigers to threaten its position. Leopards in Sri Lanka are more casual than they are elsewhere in the world and can often be seen lounging around the treetops. These leopards seem to be much bigger than leopards in Africa or India. The adorable looking sloth bear is hard to spot, but well worth the effort if you manage to catch sight of one. Lankier in build and somewhat shaggier in coat than its relatives, the brown and black bears, these creatures might seem clumsy, but they are excellent climbers and gentle with their cubs. The king of the ocean and the largest animal on the planet, the blue whale, is a rare delight for wildlife enthusiasts, and nowhere in the world are they more reliably spotted than in Sri Lanka. Nothing is quite like a shock of seeing the sheer size of these magnificent beasts in the blue waters. Be sure to plan your trip around whale watching season. Sri Lanka's coastal waters are marine biology's delight. Not only its waters frequented by blue whales for several months of the year, it also attracts superpods of spinner dolphins, a very common sight. The oceanic waters surrounding Sri Lanka are rich in nutrients and therefore attracts the bigger and more impressive marine giants. It is now recognized that in Sri Lanka, the best spot for sperm whale sighting is on the west coast of the town of Kalpitia. Conditions are perfect for these magnificent creatures. Up to 8 sightings of individual sperm whales have been seen on a single trip. Other than the big five, Sri Lanka is home to many other species such as dolphins, turtles, endemic residents and migratory birds, butterflies, dragonflies, primates, reptiles, and many more. So now it's time for us to take a look at Sri Lanka's jewels in wildlife, the national parks. Over to you, Chatamini.
Thank you, Shanella. Hello, everyone. I'm Chatamini, and I will take you through the next couple of slides about the national parks in Sri Lanka. In short, Sri Lanka has 26 national parks, which altogether covers an area of 5,734 square kilometers. And a few that would top the list of any wildlife enthusiastic would be Yala, Wilpattu, Kumana, Minneria, Bundala, Waskamua, Udawalawa, and Sinharaja. Kumana National Park, also known as Yala East National Park, is located in the Ampara district of southeast of Sri Lanka. This park provides excellent feeding and resting habitats for a large number of threatened wetland species. Among other threatened species of reptiles are the globally vulnerable mugger crocodile. And the most sighted reptiles at Kumana National Park are mugger crocodile, the Indian flap-shelled turtle, and the Indian black turtle. The bird watchers are able to watch over 200 species easily at Kumana National Park. Wilpattu National Park is the largest wildlife sanctuary in Sri Lanka. Translating to natural lakes in the Sinhalese language, Wilpattu's most prominent feature is its wetlands. Known as Willu, the park has over 50 lakes surrounded by grassy plains. The biggest draws in Wilpattu are leopards and sloth bears. Apart from those two mammals are Asian elephants, spotted deer, barking deer, mouse deer, wild boar, water buffalo, and mugger crocodiles. Despite being Sri Lanka's largest national park, visitor numbers remain low and gives the park a true sense of wilderness. Sinharaja Rainforest, World Heritage listed Sinharaja Rainforest Reserve is a biodiversity hotspot containing Sri Lanka's last area of primary tropical rainforest. It's home to over 50% of the country's endemic species of mammals and butterflies, as well as many types of reptile, insect, and rare amphibians. Yala National Park is the most famous national park in Sri Lanka. It is home to 215 bird species and 44 mammal species. Expect to see roaming elephants, herds of samba deer, crocodiles, and buffalo. This park also has the highest concentration of leopards in the world. Next, we have the Vaskamo National Park. It is located in the districts of Matale and Polonnaruwa at a distance of 225 kilometers away from Colombo. The nearest large town you can find is Polonnaruwa. The center of the attraction of this park is herds of elephants up to 150. The best time to enjoy the sight of large herds is during November to May. And in the rest of the year, the elephants tend to migrate to nearby Minneria and Kaudulla national parks. Other threatened species can also be found in this park, and 143 species of birds are reported. Next, we have the Udawalawa National Park, framed by the soaring Central Highlands. Udawalawa is one of the best places in the world to see wild elephants. Herds are often seen roaming in numbers of up to 100, with other mammals in the park, including water buffalo, wild boar, sloth bear, and the spotted deer. We also have the Minneria National Park. As part of Sri Lanka's elephant corridor, large numbers of elephants migrate across the country to Minneria every year. This is known as the gathering. As many as 300 elephants come to the park's reservoir in the largest meeting of Asian elephants anywhere in the world. Bundala National Park is one of Sri Lanka's best destinations for bird watching. Bundala protects an area of coastal wetland, and almost 200 species of birds have been recorded here. It includes the ibis, pelicans, and huge flocks of greater flamingos. Visitors can also spot crocodiles, elephants, turtles, and a variety of other fauna. I will now hand over the rest of the presentation to Trivida to answer any of the questions you may have.
Thank you, Chatumini. We got a few minutes for some questions from the audience. If anyone has any additional questions, they can send them in. I've got a couple here as well, though we don't get a chance to get through all of them. We'll take a note of them and pass them on to the panelists present today. So let us have a look at the questions that we have received so far. There's a question from Thomas, and he wants to know how many species of turtle can be seen in Sri Lanka and the best place to see them during a holiday. I think Shanla, can you answer this?
Yes, thank you, Thomas, for your question. So to be precise, it is 5 species of turtles that can be seen here in Sri Lanka. And if I have to name them, it would be the green turtle, olive ridley, hawksbill, loggerhead, and the leatherback. And also Rakava and Koskoda are the main areas in the southern coastal line where you may see them. So if these places are included in your itinerary, you can definitely see these animals. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Shanila. And we have another question from, I think it's Deanne. And she wants to know if it's possible to run a wildlife tour during these days. Chatumini, can you answer this?
Yes, Trivida. It is possible, and all the famous national parks are open for tourists, and all you need to do is getting the prior approval and visiting the parks and sites during the time that is provided by the officials. And when we design the itineraries, we always incorporate all the guidelines and the visiting times, etc., to the itinerary.
Thank you, Chaturmini. I think, Diane, I hope she answered your question. And we have another question here, and it's from Glenn. And he says we get regular updates about Sri Lanka, and he wants to know if it's possible to know the outline for the latest guidelines in Sri Lanka. Can someone please answer this?
Yes, Travida. So we received the latest guidelines on the 19th of August, and if I just briefly go through it, the vaccinated tourists should stay at a level 1 hotel on their first night only, where an on-arrival PCR test will be carried out. And if that test comes negative, they can freely travel, as in they can move out from the level 1 and then they can freely move with the community. And unvaccinated tourists should be booked at a level 1 hotel for a minimum of 14 nights, where they will also have an on-arrival PCR test on the first night, and thereafter they can travel within the bio bubble. They cannot move to the community, but we have created this bio bubble, so they can travel within the bio bubble until the second PCR test is carried out on day 14 and it comes negative. So once the day 14 PCR test comes negative, they can, after informing to the relevant authorities, they can move out to the community. And also, a repeat PCR test has to be conducted in 10 days after the arrival for unvaccinated children who will be traveling with vaccinated parents. So if there are children who are unvaccinated that are traveling with vaccinated parents, they have to undergo a second PCR test on day 10. And also a repeat PCR test will be conducted on day 14 for all unvaccinated tourists, as I mentioned before. And also if any traveler is, if there's anyone with a history of COVID-19, they can come through the guidelines and the route for the vaccinated tourists.
Thank you, Chaturmini, for going in such detail. And I hope, Glenn, she answered your question. And yeah, unfortunately, we are out of time today, so we cannot get a lot of questions. We have taken a note of all of them. We'll pass them on to our respective panel members, and either them or their team will get back to you. You can get in touch with us through inquiries at srilanka.tailormade.com or inquiries at jetwinecoholidays.com. Do follow us on social media. As always, thank you very much for everybody for tuning in. You will get a replay sent either later today or tomorrow. Always appreciate your attendance and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Ayubowan.